this is just not how you set up the story. And we know this. It is not how you set up the story. By the way, I do offer official editing services. If you want that, you can contact me in my Gmail. But if you want me to review a sample of your writing for free in my channel, then you can send me that and we'll see whether you have what it takes. Okay, let's delve into this video today. And it's basically about two things. Fundamentally, oh yeah, Joe Jose sent me this email, right? This sample. It's beautiful. I read all of it. And I have a problem. But, I mean, there's not really much to read. 6 pages. I thought it was 7 pages. Well, I read it in my phone. Anyhow, there is a problem with this story. And it's the setup. This is the single worst possible setup that you could effectively do. I will discuss why. So this is fundamentally the setup. I sit in the waiting area for my time to enter the games. So these are wizards fighting each other. I try to not let my nerves get the better of me, but still they do. And since I have now run out of fingernails to bite, I return to pacing up and down. So far, decent, nothing problem really. A huge wooden hatch leading to the arena above falls open with an enormous thud. And fundamentally, one issue shows up very early. And it shows up in this sentence. We immediately jump. We are not even fundamentally grounded into the scene. The audience is not grounded in. They are fundamentally floating, and you don't have a good grip on the reader, right? The hook is fine. I want to know what the games are. When he enters, what happens? But this is the second problem that I will be discussing later. But for now, let's talk about the first problem, which is fundamentally the setup. This player that is playing the game gets, carried out on a stretcher. There are magicians that show up to heal the guy. They manage to seal his wounds and the bleeding stops. A short, plump wizard with a clipboard walks into the waiting arena, clears his throat, points at me, and announces my duel will commence in 20 minutes. I sit and close my eyes. I have to focus and remember my training. Okay, so then of course the story goes into, here, which is backstory. Now there is a huge problem here, which is fundamentally the setup itself. When you want to hook an audience, you want to show them or give them an idea of what the readers are going to get, okay? In this entire setup, the main issue with it is that the setup, while structurally fine, fails because it doesn't show us what the duels look like. We know that I am next to duel in the deadly game of wizards. In the deadly game of wizards, yeah, but that's telling us, in order to have an effective setup, fundamentally you need to show the readers what it looks like. Okay, perhaps show some destruction, perhaps show because even and there is a missed opportunity here, right? A platform falls on a guy and that guy has to be healed, right? It's a big issue because you could have said the guy was beaten down badly in the arena. He was beaten down really badly by another wizard competing with him, right? And that other wizard competing with him, now we know how deadly the game is because they literally have to basically mumble incantations to basically revive you, okay? So we would get an idea of what the game is, but now instead it's just a wooden platform, and there's really no indication that this was caused by a wizard or something like that. Yeah, at least I read the story, and there's no indication that I wouldn't, like you read here, my heart leaps to my throat as the roar of the crowd floods the underground, reverberating through my body and unsettling my nerves. Further, a platform containing a stretcher. Yeah, so there's no indication, right? So at least if this guy was hit was beaten down by a wizard with a magic spell, it would have been better because we would have gotten an idea of how deadly the games are, right? Another thing is fundamentally show the duel. Just show two people fighting. Maybe you want to show two senior fighters that are epic, that are at the very top of the game, dueling, right? Two wizards, And our protagonist, we come to learn that this is his first match, and he's a novice, and he's amazed at the big duel that is happening, which means that fundamentally there is a promise there, because the premise is that there are wizards and a game of wizards, and it's basically they're dueling each other. Well, the promise is these epic wizards, our protagonist, who's a novice, he's going to become like that, yeah, eventually. So that would be a good setup. So the setup here fails miserably, right? And it just doesn't work. It rushes too fast. It's running. Take your time. Just take a breather, okay? Don't be scared. Take your time, take a breather, and I promise it will always work out, okay? Just give it a chance, okay? And then the second problem with this story is a secret past. Fundamentally, the author does not use he also tells us about the character's past, literally. You know, my name is Buddy Joseph MacArthur. I'm 15 years old, and I first discovered I was a wizard on my 7th birthday. This is a novel, interesting idea. I like this hook, but then the author literally continues this. It would be nice if this was just the hook, yeah? But the author continues that same style of prose for this entire chunk, right? A narration summary of the character's life. Dad promised we would go for our first off-road trek right after the party, so my excitement level had hit the roof right at the point when Mom bent down for me to blow out the candles. Immediately after, 3 of my friends screamed. Of course, he blows out the candles. I took a deep breath, and when I exhaled, chaos happened. Basically, he's a wizard. He blew up the candles, right? At the time, I had no idea what was going on, and neither did my friends or their parents. And we keep being told about his childhood, his life. We are never really immersed into it. We never see what he's, there's no taking time. Like, the author doesn't take any time fundamentally to establish the characters. This is quite an important part of the story. You don't want to rush through it. Exactly. Dad began teaching me some basic spells. Of course, they explained it was my overexcitement which brought out the magic, causing the cake to explode. I jump here deliberately, okay? I jump here deliberately because this entire chunk here, it is fundamentally critical to have it expanded. So that whole part that I just highlighted needs to be expanded because you need to create a scene, right? Because you are telling the entire story. The whole story is being just told, but you're not showing. The candles exploded, but what was that like? Okay, is there a scene associated with that? And when you have a scene, you do not have to have a narration summary of the character's life. Instead, you can basically create a scene, and within that scene, you can use one of the events in the story to jump off to fundamentally go on a tangent that is related to explain to the reader what the character's background is, okay? And so, much of this second chunk here, which is a backstory, of course, when I was 12, the COVID pandemic hit, Mom and Dad, this is still background, but we're being told about it. I wasn't told what the problems were or the reason why he couldn't return. And at the time, this didn't matter to me. We're basically sleepwalking through the story. I was just relieved to know he was alive. After the letter, Mom said we had to leave the bakery. To make money, she continued to sell online, baking bespoke cakes of all flavors. So this is fine, but you can do better by grounding the story in a scene and using that cue events or events within that story, within that scene, in order to jump off to effectively communicate to the reader the additional information here. So fundamentally, all you see in this from here, and I literally mean it, I actually mean it, to here, which is everything except the first 2 pages, should be expansion for a grounded scene. And in order to communicate all of this, you will have to fundamentally ground the story in a scene that hooks the reader, then jumping off to these tangents. Because when you communicate this, it will not be info dump, because the audience is already hooked. But because you are fundamentally telling us only this stuff, it means that literally this whole chunk here is just info dumping. For 2 pages, you tell a story. For 4 pages, you info dump. So you should ground the story in a scene that hooks the readers, and you should do this all the time. And you should do this for every chapter of the story. Most chapters, if I would say close to almost all of them, right? Overall, for the story, I would say this one fails to have an effective setup, okay? And it doesn't really know how to tell. How to tell, because this is not how you tell. This is not really how you tell. You need to ground the story in a scene and jump to this. And that scene needs to hook the readers. It's that simple, right? Yes. So I will leave it here for this week. And remember, if you want me to edit your story, you can contact me. That's really going to be it for today. Have a nice day. Bye.